Tonight, growing opposition to the building of a new pipeline at the center of an energy deal between Ottawa and Alberta.
If Canada gets this done, I will be gobsmacked if they can pull this off.
The First Nations communities standing their ground and the efforts to win them over. Plus, devastation in Southeast Asia.
With the climate change, the global warming specifically, the warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture.
The death toll rises after record rainfall and catastrophic flooding. And fears democracy is under threat as Donald Trump's immigration policies hit the streets of Chicago.
It seems like they've been testing out how much they can get away with, how much violence they can get away with as they suppress free speech.
The crackdown and the resistance.
From CBC News, this is The National with Asha Tomlinson.
Thanks for joining us. Ian is away. Opposition is mounting tonight against a proposed oil pipeline to the Pacific that cleared a major political hurdle this week. Ottawa and Alberta signed a sweeping deal Thursday, moving the massive energy project one step closer to reality. But it won't come easy. British Columbia is pushing back. So are First Nation leaders there who worry about the environmental damage it could cause. JP Tasker begins our coverage tonight with the fight to get the pipeline built and the efforts to stop it.
In northwest BC, opposition is growing over a new oil pipeline destined for the Pacific. A project coastal First Nations leaders fear could lead to a disastrous spill in these pristine waters.
If Canada gets this done, I will be gobsmacked.
This First Nations chief says there's little Ottawa can say or do to get her community on side.
Our nation has spoken about this more than 20 years ago. The tone hasn't changed, the opinion hasn't changed, and I think it would be very difficult to sit down and talk about that.
That opposition could stymie Prime Minister Mark Carney's landmark agreement with Alberta. Carney says he wants some Indigenous consent before pressing ahead with a bitumen pipeline to the coast.
There's no proponent, there's no route, there's no business plan.
The BC government is also doubling down.
The answer is no, and the reasons are this. There are better alternatives.
But there's little BC can do to stop this proposed pipeline from going ahead. The province's top court has previously ruled interprovincial projects like this are the sole jurisdiction of the federal government, a decision affirmed by the Supreme Court.
That coast belongs to all Canadians, and we have the right under our Constitution to use that coast to transport our goods to the world.
Alberta's energy minister is trying to persuade the naysayers, promising money and jobs for First Nations.
I don't know if you've been to northern BC recently, but those folks are not doing as well as other places in Canada.
Thank you very much.
The standing ovation in Calgary, a promising sign. Carney is calling the deal a win for national unity.
We will build big. We will build fast. We will build bold again.
Meanwhile, his environment minister insists the government hasn't given up on its climate goals.
We always knew that the targets that we had set for 2030 and 2035 were ambitious targets.
Stephen Guilbeault resigned from cabinet in protest over the Alberta deal. Other Liberal MPs over the weekend were downplaying the possibility of the pipeline ever getting built, citing First Nations opposition. Still, the Prime Minister seems committed to a project that could inject billions of dollars into the tariff-hit economy.
Okay, and what do the polls say about support for a pipeline like this?
Yeah, polls suggest a strong majority of Canadians are in favor of a new pipeline. Concerns over climate and the environment have drifted down the list of priorities. Jobs and growth are what voters say they care about most. Sources say that's why the Liberal government is willing to greenlight a project like this one. Asha?
Thanks, JP. In Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith is facing some backlash from her own party over the deal with Ottawa. As Sam Sampson explains, it's not the pipeline that worries them, but whether they can trust Mark Carney.
Danielle Smith appeared fired up this weekend, fresh from penning a deal with Ottawa.
We have been abused and taken for granted repeatedly over the past decades. But my friends, let's not throw in the towel and give up on our country just as the battle has turned in our favor and victory is in sight. It is.
Alberta's premier sold a new energy-focused Memorandum of Understanding with Ottawa to her party at its annual general meeting, a deal that could create a new bitumen pipeline if the two governments continue to cooperate.
I will take the advice of a great U.S. President, Ronald Reagan, who said when dealing with a former adversary, trust but verify. And on behalf of Albertans, I will be verifying and holding Ottawa accountable, as you know, every step of the way. You can absolutely count on that.
Not everyone is on board. While recent polling shows most Albertans want to stay in Canada, some want independence, and many say they never want to team up with Ottawa.
She can have her MOU and suck up to Carney. It's a bad look in Alberta.
With the way the Ottawa is running right now, we have no chance of ever getting a fair shake from our federal government.
But some might just need to see more action.
It's an easy out for Prime Minister Carney, and I don't think he's proven himself to be a man of his word yet, not to the West. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not really optimistic.
I think it's just like it's a different tone from Ottawa.
This Conservative strategist says Smith can win over the skeptical crowd if she's true to her word.
I think that message, which got her elected as UCP leader about standing up to Ottawa, is something that was important for her to drive, and I think she hit it home today.
Her party overwhelmingly voted in favor of a resolution supporting pipeline investment. Just how that happens is the sticking point. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
After Donald Trump warned that Venezuelan airspace should be considered closed, he now says that he's spoken with the country's leader, Nicolas Maduro.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
No, I can't do that.
Would you say it went well?
I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
Trump suggested on Friday that land operations could begin soon, targeting Venezuelan drug cartels. Caracas accuses the U.S. of plotting to seize the country's oil wealth. The U.S. has assembled the largest force in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis, including thousands of Marines, landing craft, missile destroyers, and a carrier strike group. Amid fears of a new war in Venezuela, the Trump administration continues to work on a proposal to end the war in Ukraine, meeting with envoys from Kyiv and Florida. Rafi Boudjikanian now on their message and the steep challenge that remains.
The Kyiv region in Ukraine, the aftermath of yet another Russian missile strike, says the country's state emergency service, this time killing 5 people and injuring another. Striking within hours of Ukraine's president saying that diplomacy remains active, the American contribution constructive. His team meeting with American officials in Florida on Sunday.
We are discussing about the future of Ukraine, about the security of Ukraine, about no repetition of aggression of Ukraine.
We want to see the end of the killing and the death and the suffering.
But peace efforts face headwinds. Just over a week ago, an initial plan unveiled by the Trump administration was seen as favorable to Russia and would have forced Ukraine to hand over territory.
We are not talking about, just square meters empty or abandoned. We are talking about Ukrainian territories which are inhabited with cities and villages, with people, with families living in their homes.
Some observers of the war say Russia is gaining the upper hand on the battlefield, Ukraine losing leverage.
What we have now is, I think, one of the last opportunities for a negotiated or diplomatic solution to a war, as opposed to having the war itself conclude through military force.
While it's unclear how the peace proposal is changed after talks on Sunday with Ukraine, the U.S. president seemed pleased as his envoys prepare to head to Moscow.
Ukraine's got some difficult little problems. They have some difficult problems, but I think Russia would like to see it end, and I know Ukraine would like to see it end.
Those difficult problems, a reference to how Zelensky's chief of staff, who was also his chief negotiator in these talks, resigned last week as he faces corruption allegations.
And those domestic problems, Rafi, they could impact this peace process.
Asha, that initial draft of the U.S. peace plan, it called for Ukraine to hold elections within 100 days of a ceasefire. Now, that's since been watered down to as soon as possible. It's not clear whether the proposals ironed out with Kyiv this weekend will be palatable to the Russian side when Trump's special envoys head to Moscow this week to talk with Vladimir Putin.
Rafi Boudjikanian in Washington, thanks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally requested a presidential pardon, sparking outrage among critics. Demonstrators gathered outside the presidential residence tonight, saying Netanyahu is dodging responsibility for alleged fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes. Charges Netanyahu has always denied. Now advocating for a pardon, not for his own interests, he says, but rather the national interest. He's the first sitting prime minister in Israeli history to stand trial, a legal battle that has dragged on now for 5 years. 2 years of war partly contributed to that delay. Since the October ceasefire, full-scale war hasn't returned to Gaza. But as Tom Perry shows us, while the intensity has faded, desperation, destruction, and bloodshed in Gaza remains.
Another funeral in Gaza, this one for two young brothers, Fadi and Goma Abu Asi, killed by an Israeli drone strike while out gathering firewood for their family. Their children, one is 10, the other 12, says the boy's uncle Mohammed Abu Asi, may God have mercy on them. What did they do? The Israel Defense Forces says it fired on two suspects who were acting suspiciously and approached soldiers' positions. Gaza's health ministry says more than 350 Palestinians have been killed since last month's ceasefire, bringing the total number of dead to more than 70,000. Meanwhile, the living in Gaza continue to suffer, with more than 80% of the territory's buildings damaged or destroyed, according to the UN. Many families are sheltering in tents pelted by winter rains.
It's really a desperate situation. And, parents have shared with us how deeply upsetting it is for their children to be crying because of the cold, because of the wet, and there is nothing for them to do.
Food aid is reaching Gaza, though humanitarian groups say it's not enough. Commercial goods are arriving as well, leaving some markets stocked with fruits, vegetables, even treats for those who can afford it. Everything is available, but you can't get anything for your kids to eat, says Nariman Al-Halou. There's no cash, there's no liquidity.
The problem is that people in Gaza, they've been through a war of 2 years. Most of them don't have jobs, don't have incomes. So that food that you can see, most people can't afford to buy it.
The World Food Program is calling on Israel to open more crossings into Gaza to increase the flow of aid. It says despite some progress, Gaza remains in crisis. As for the ceasefire, it's reduced the pace of killing in the territory, but it hasn't stopped it. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
In Southeast Asia, the death toll has now passed 600 after days of monsoon rains made worse by incredibly high winds. Floods and landslides are cutting people off from supplies and shelter. Sarah Levitt now shows us the devastation and how climate change could be driving it.
A daunting rescue as waters rise. At least 600 are dead across Southeast Asia, and so many are still missing. A deadly mix of monsoon rains, a cyclone, and a typhoon. Battering rain through Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia, making its way to India. Rushing, rising waters leading to destructive landslides with some unable to escape. There's been a lot of damage done, this resident says, the worst he's seen in years. In Sri Lanka, the rain has stopped, but the danger and misery continue. President Anira Kumari Dissanayake says this is the worst natural disaster the island has seen. And he says recovery will take some time, with lives still at risk. Flood levels are rising, says this official, as he urges residents to evacuate their homes to safety. Many are unable, stranded, waiting for help, as soldiers drop supplies and attempt rescues.
So with the climate change, the global warming specifically, the warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture. So when it rains, it has much more moisture, so it rains very heavily.
While on average, the rain in monsoon season hasn't increased, what's changed is the intensity. For those who have seen the water recede, cleanup has just begun, a massive task to see what can be salvaged. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Police in California are still searching for a suspect tonight after a shooting at a birthday party left 4 people dead.
It is unfathomable that there are young children who are harmed, that there's anybody who is harmed in this, and our hearts go out to those victims.
The victims include 3 children, ages 8, 9, and 14. 11 others were injured. Authorities say they were part of a large family gathering at a banquet hall. No motive has been given, but officials say it was a targeted shooting. Manitoba is taking a different approach to tackle a growing meth crisis across the province. Anyone suffering a drug-induced psychosis can now be placed in protective care for up to 3 days. A move the province says will reduce pressures on emergency rooms. But as Cameron McIntosh tells us, others say involuntary detention is not the answer.
Modeled on a high-security psychiatric ward, the Manitoba government is calling this protective care.
It's about keeping people safe.
A new sobering center where people experiencing extreme methamphetamine intoxication can be held for up to 72 hours, up from the previous maximum of 24. A Canadian first.
Manitobans have said they don't feel safe in their communities. We know that people aren't feeling safe when they're doing substances either, and we want to intervene.
Manitoba has one of the highest meth use rates in the country. Overdoses often showing up in emergency rooms, ill-equipped to deal with severe and often violent psychosis. The plan is to treat extreme cases diagnosed in hospital, here in isolated cells, under medical supervision.
And then we're having additional support from mental health physicians and addictions support. Realistically, I don't think people are going to be staying for 72 hours.
Still, that notion of involuntary detainment in a facility that resembles a jail does not sit well with everyone.
We demand justice. We demand empathy.
Last weekend, dozens protested against the center and the 72-hour policy, calling it a criminalization of addiction. Monica Ballantyne is a former drug user.
Had I been thrown in that detainment center, I think I would have just hid my addiction more.
Experts in addictions treatment say there is evidence to support the approach.
From a medical perspective, certainly this is consistent with high risk, high acuity mental health and addictions.
For far too long, what we've been doing has not been working, and we're taking, a different approach.
The center, part of a broader and controversial addiction strategy by Manitoba's NDP government, which will include a supervised injection site in the new year. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
World AIDS Day is set for tomorrow amid warnings of a sharp decline in funding.
I think we're going to see like a high rise of new infections of HIV.
Why financial support is drying up. Disputes at the airport caught on camera with the passengers paying the price.
The manager suddenly grabbed my phone.
Go public on what they went through and how they're fighting back. And a historic first for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
School bounces in to the far post and they're in! Brian White with the finish!
We're back in 2. Lebanese folk dancers braved the pouring rain tonight to welcome Pope Leo to the presidential palace. The Pope is preaching peace to the leaders of Lebanon and asking young people to commit to staying in their country. He's offering support to the country's Christian minority who have ancient roots in the country. Just hours from now, World AIDS Day will be marked with many conversations centered around big cuts to global funding. Philippe de Montigny starts us off in Canada, where activists say the care needed here is also being shortchanged.
The access to HIV medication was difficult in Venezuela. So this is
Ower Alberto moved to Canada in 2014 so he could receive life-saving treatment.
something that caused me a lot of stress is just to pass the HIV to other folks.
Now he helps other HIV-positive folks access care in a country where government funding for HIV groups hasn't grown in decades. Canada's oldest, the AIDS Committee of Toronto, will close down in March after 42 years of public education and handing out condoms.
ACT has been in a deficit budget for over 5 years, and it came to a point where our deficit budgets were no longer going to be sustainable.
Despite an uptick in new HIV infections in 2023, this expert says Canada has all the tools it needs to control the virus domestically. He says prevention is key. Drugs like PrEP, which people can take daily to protect themselves, now have injectable options taken once every few months.
Canada is doing pretty good, but we don't live in a vacuum. Okay? We're living in an era now where the carpet has been pulled out from underneath us from a global standpoint.
The United States, which accounted for 3/4 of global HIV funding, cut it off completely earlier this year.
Clinics closed without warning, and life-saving testing, treatment, and prevention services experienced widespread and continuing disruption.
Countries like Canada have committed to the UN goal of eradicating HIV as a public health crisis by 2030.
And yet, unfortunately, most of the G7 countries, including Canada, have decided to roll back their funding.
For many, that UN goal feels further out of reach.
I don't feel confident at all. And I think we're going to see like a high rise of new infections of HIV.
Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadian travelers are challenging airlines after staff members tried to force them to stop using their phones to record disputes.
I didn't have all the details whether it was allowed or not, but I was like, this is the right thing to do.
Go public on your rights at the airport. Canada has a new weather alert system.
If a red alert is issued, it means dangerous and potentially life-threatening weather.
The key information you need to know. And the human toll of raids ordered by Donald Trump and carried out in Chicago.
I say, sir, please don't shoot me. I am not a Venezuelan.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world next. A powerful winter storm slamming parts of the U.S. Midwest forced hundreds of flight cancellations and delays over the weekend, affecting millions trying to get home after Thanksgiving. On Saturday, around 45 vehicles were caught up in a crash on a highway in Indiana. No major injuries were reported. The heavy snow could linger until Tuesday. 2 airline passengers are going public tonight after airline employees tried to stop them from using their phones to record airport disputes. Erica Johnson looks at the incidents and what your rights are when it comes to recording.
This is mine. Is this your phone? Sir. Mine.
Jason Huang was using his phone to record why he and his relatives couldn't check in. They'd just had a vacation in Banff, but at the airport learned they'd been moved to a later flight home to Toronto. Huang wanted to record the reason WestJet agents gave him, so he'd have proof when he tried to get compensation.
The manager suddenly grabbed my phone.
Stop! On tape, the WestJet agent says Huang can't record and won't be flying today if he doesn't stop, even reaching for Huang's elderly father's phone.
Shocking. I can't believe this is happening in Canada.
Delete the all pictures and all video for check-in.
This Air Transat agent tells passengers they won't be boarding either if they don't delete photos and videos they've taken of him. Midden Haridas and his wife had enjoyed a vacation in Punta Cana. Were heading back to Toronto, but at the airport they apparently stood in the wrong line. The agent became irritated, so Haridas started recording.
So I didn't have all the details whether it was allowed or not, but I was like, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do it.
As punishment, the agent denied boarding. They had to buy new tickets home on another carrier, took their case to small claims. A judge called Air Transat's treatment egregious, said the recordings proved that, and awarded $7,000 in damages. Air Transat said in a statement the airline regrets the experience didn't meet its usual high standards of customer service. This expert in privacy law says recordings can be useful when trying to get compensation, and air passengers have the legal right to make them during a dispute.
The airlines just need to make it clear to their staff that these types of recordings are permitted.
That's because under the law, a conversation can be recorded as long as one of those persons, in this case the person doing the filming, consents. WestJet apologized, but no compensation for Wong. He's now filed a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency. He says the experience tainted his trip and his trust. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Time now to break down the stories shaping our world. A change by Ottawa in the way it warns the public about dangerous weather.
We hope that Canadians will understand their risk level from these weather hazards better.
How a new color-coded system may help keep you safe this winter. But first.
Your country is ashamed of you.
Violence on the streets of Chicago, where residents stand up to Donald Trump's immigration agents. Terrence McKenna breaks down why Chicago is in the crosshairs of the ICE crackdown and the fears about what it means for American democracy.
Apparently, Donald Trump loves the movie Apocalypse Now, especially its helicopter and napalm attacks on Vietnamese villages, a display of naked U.S. government power. Somehow Trump sees this as a model for his campaign against political opponents in American cities.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
In early September on his Truth Social account, Trump posted, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning," along with a faked-up photo of him attacking the city of Chicago. Having recently renamed the Department of Defense, he wrote, "Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War," with 3 helicopter emojis. After midnight on September 30th, Trump made good on his threat. Black Hawk helicopters led an attack force of hundreds of federal agents in military fatigues, descending on a single large apartment building on the south side of Chicago. They released this promotional video of their action. They used flash grenades and cut through metal fences, rousting scores of civilians out of their beds. Apparently in a search for a handful of Hispanic men accused of being members of a Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. In the end, they arrested 2. The raid was led by Border Services Commander Greg Bavino, who granted an exclusive interview to an embedded pro-Trump TV network invited along for the ride.
The end game tonight, obviously, is to make that area a safe place. We're going to remove all illegal aliens, especially if it's Tren de Aragua, but any and all illegal aliens, and that's going to make this community a safer place.
The motivation clearly went beyond removing illegal aliens. Dozens of detained people, immigrants and citizens alike, were herded into windowless box vans and held for hours. U.S. citizen Eleanor McMullen Webster was detained with her husband.
But they beat on my door, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, who is it? Come out with your hands up. Okay, I'm scared now. When I opened that door, I tell you, I saw that little red light, and that gun was right in my face. I say, sir, please don't shoot me. I am not a Venezuelan. He say, turn around, put cuffs on me, and put me up on the wall.
So I was able to see a lot of the helicopters coming down up there, about 3 helicopters.
Neighbor Ebony Sweets Watson videotaped the raid.
How y'all just busting in everybody's apartments? You don't know who apartments you going in. You just raiding the whole building. I started recording them. I said, what are y'all doing? Do you have warrants? Let me see the warrants. Who are you here for? Why are you disturbing the entire neighborhood for one simple raid? Why y'all wearing ski masks like criminals? Show y'all face. And they were just like, go back to your side of the street. I'm like, no, this is a public street. Identify yourself. So y'all kidnapping people, what's going on? You could see some of the kids coming out. And it's disheartening because a lot of them didn't have on clothes, they didn't have on shoes. They looked very disheveled and scared. They were zip-tied together.
Governor J.B. Pritzker was outraged by the raid.
The reports of excessive use of force against children is unconscionable. And the way many innocent residents who lived in the building were treated is appalling.
Democrat Robert Reich was Secretary of Labor under President Clinton.
This is the way you would expect a dictatorship and the goons of a dictatorship to be acting. Without regard to due process, without regard to the rights of individuals, to be told what's happening to them, why things are being done to them.
What did you get out?
On the CBS TV program 60 Minutes, Trump had no problem with the raid.
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
Trump points to shooting incidents like this one on a recent weekend in Chicago, where one person was killed and 7 injured. He claimed the people are chanting, "Bring in Trump."
Nobody is off limits.
He is supported by Republican groups like Chicago Flips Red and Danielle Carter Walters.
We were so happy because it lets us know that something is finally going to get done with the things that we have been asking for and begging our elected officials to do, but they don't listen to us and they don't care. So we finally had a president who said, okay, I'm listening to the citizens and I'm going to do what's best for the citizens and what's right. So we were very happy.
In the weeks following the night raid, Bovino and his troops spread out through the city, arresting anyone who challenged them, choking people, dragging them to the ground,
Leave her the fuck alone!
beating them.
What are they doing?
Dozens of U.S. citizens were charged with impeding officers. One of them was a Democratic Party candidate for Congress, Kat Abu Ghazala.
They thought that by showing up in residential neighborhoods in Chicago and deploying tear gas, that having men in uniform patrolling our neighborhoods and grabbing people in the middle of the night, that they would scare us, and instead they made us more defiant.
We have the highest percentage and highest raw number of immigrants of any neighborhood in the Midwest United States, I would venture.
Alderman Michael Rodriguez encountered an ICE arrest incident in his neighborhood of Little Village.
There's Bovino.
In the video, you can see him trying to calm the crowd when a flash grenade explodes at his feet.
Why would they do that? Unprovoked. I have no idea. To create more fear, to create more instability in our community.
Border Patrol agents driving away from the scene randomly sprayed tear gas into the open window of a passing car.
Mama, you okay, Mama?
There was a 1-year-old inside beside her parents.
Why would they do that? Why would they instill fear in people? Why would they arrest so many citizens? 98% of the people they're arresting have no criminal record. I mean, I don't understand any of it.
Why is Trump going to war with American cities?
I think he is looking at the 2026 midterm elections, and he is saying to himself and maybe others quietly, this is a way to intimidate. And if people in Democratic cities where a majority of voters are Democrats are afraid to go out on the streets, if they're afraid to be seen, then I win because they're not going to vote.
At first, Chicago citizens' protests focused on the Broadview Immigration Detention Facility on the outskirts of the city. There were pitched battles with police. One news photo focused on a Presbyterian minister in the middle of the confrontation, Reverend David Black.
So what were you doing here that day?
I had come as a pastor. I was
here to give spiritual support to protesters who are here. We often look at these gates of the facility as the gates of hell. And people trapped inside are really trapped in horrid conditions. So as a Christian minister, I feel like it's my responsibility to be here.
One day, while Reverend Black was praying and pleading with officers outside the Broadview facility, he was shot in the head by a pepper gas ball fired from guards on the rooftop.
They opened fire and shot me in the face and on the head and several times on my body, and other protesters rushed in to guard me and took several shots that were meant for me.
I already went to the hospital once. Your country is ashamed of you.
It seems like they've been testing out how much they can get away with, how much violence they can get away with as they suppress free speech and try to dismantle the civil society of a major American city.
He's declared a war on not just the city of Chicago, but on U.S. citizen, law-abiding individuals. And we urge our fellow countrymen and our allies throughout the world to push back against this fascist agenda of Donald Trump.
The citizen protests spread to the normally quiet suburban neighborhoods around Chicago. When immigration agents showed up in Lakeview to arrest construction workers, neighbors poured out of nearby houses to raise the alarm and confront them, and were tear gassed. This sort of protest can become dangerous. In the town of Evanston, a civilian was chasing after a car of immigration agents. The agents slammed on the brakes and he rear-ended their car. He was taken out of his vehicle and severely beaten. As a woman nearby was also being arrested.
You're gonna what? You're gonna fucking shoot me?
An agent threatened to shoot one witness who was recording. That witness was David Brooks.
What was your reaction?
Scared, frightened. I don't really know how to take it.
You're gonna fucking shoot me? All right, tough guy.
I think that the individuals who are doing this, the people who are instructing them to do it, I believe that they're acting with total authority, but without any sort of oversight at all, and they should be held accountable for their actions.
Public opinion polls show that the American people are turning against the Trump immigration policies, which are now seen as a major factor in Trump's overall low approval ratings. But Pastor Black is worried that the president will not give up power.
The Trump administration has consolidated so much power and has such a monopoly on violence that there is really so little recourse for a population that is opposed to its government to unseat that government.
Show your face! Show your face!
The widespread public resistance seen in the streets of Chicago is now sweeping across the country, like this scene in central New York City.
Show your face, you fucking coward! Show your face! Don't push me, coward!
America is like a sleeping giant. It's slow to awaken. And I've seen this over and over again. I saw it with regard to the civil rights movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement and Richard Nixon, Watergate. And when that sleeping giant awakens and roars, he puts an end to what it is that is irritating, that is immoral, amoral, that is undermining the ideals of the United States. That sleeping giant is now awakening.
Many authoritarian governments around the world have faced widespread public resistance that didn't slow them down. Will it be different in the United States? Trump is using the shooting of 2 National Guardsmen in Washington to double down on his campaign against American cities, which he has characterized as a sacred mission to defend the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. He has asked U.S. military leaders to use U.S. cities as a training ground for American armed forces.
The immigration action in Democratic cities will target New Orleans next. ICE agents are set to begin a month-long crackdown there starting Monday. The same commander who led the violent Chicago raids is expected to helm the Louisiana operation too. Coming up, Canada gets a new weather warning system.
It's more about what the weather will do and less about what the weather will be.
Why Environment Canada is now using colors to convey risk. In an ever-changing climate, Canadians need to protect themselves against hazardous weather.
I'm worried about things like roofs or trees falling down or power going out.
Environment Canada has changed the way it conveys weather threats, introducing a new color-coded system.
Each color represents a risk level.
Meteorologist Ryan Snodden breaks down how the new system works and how you can use it to protect yourself and your family.
Environment and Climate Change Canada will continue to issue the types of warnings you normally see throughout the course of a year. Special weather statements are still in the mix, which will appear in gray. Those statements will continue to be issued for potentially significant weather events or weather events of interest, but don't quite reach warning level criteria. So the difference moving forward is that each of these warnings will now have a color-coded alert level of yellow, orange, or red. The alert color level will be based on an assessment of both the potential impacts of the weather event and also forecast confidence. So the higher the impact and the higher the confidence that the incoming weather will actually deliver those impacts, the higher the alert level. For the majority of warning-worthy storms and hazardous events, you'll likely see a yellow warning. Yellow alerts are the baseline for watches and warnings and can be issued for a wide range of weather situations. This is the type of weather that will bring hazardous or dangerous conditions, impacting travel and causing delays or cancellations. There could be health-related impacts like reduced air quality or heat warnings. Orange warnings are the next phase and will be issued for storms that are likely to cause widespread or significant damage. Here we're talking about those widespread windstorms or crippling ice storms that cause thousands of power outages that can last for days. If an orange alert level warning is issued for your area, you should prepare to take action to protect yourself and your property. The highest warning level is red. If a red alert is issued, it means dangerous and potentially life-threatening weather is on the way or is occurring. Under a red alert, you should expect prolonged and extensive disruptions to travel and power with widespread damage and property and infrastructure. Examples include Hurricane Fiona or the 2024 snowstorm that brought 150 centimeters of snow to parts of Cape Breton, or flooding events like the ones experienced by the Maritimes over the past few years. If a red alert is issued, it means you should act now to stay safe from destructive weather. By focusing on the weather impacts rather than the weather itself, the main goal here is to enhance storm preparedness and better communicate how to prepare in advance. So when a weather warning is issued for your area, it's important to read the content of that warning to determine which weather situation is being covered and then act accordingly.
Environment Canada says it made the change to the color-coded system because it better aligns with best practices globally and is the system recommended by the World Meteorological Organization. Up next, the Vancouver Whitecaps advance to the MLS Cup final for the first time.
Are very confident that they have a good chance next Saturday to win it all.
The superfan who watched it play out live in our moment. You're looking at the Vancouver Whitecaps raising their trophy after earning a spot in their first MLS Cup final. A group of fans traveled to San Diego to catch the game and make sure their team had support in the stands. Their dedication, along with Vancouver's big win, makes our moment.
It was a fantastic moment. We watched as the Whitecaps lifted the Western Conference trophy, and it was very nice and very shiny. The Vancouver Southsiders is the biggest supporter group of the Whitecaps. It was just about 200 of us in the stands.
They work it across. The return pass. Kubas is in to the
Because we got the couple of goals early, it was really celebratory. Just waiting for the referee to blow the whistle and call it an end because San Diego was just done. It's quite different when you are traveling to an away game because like the stadium is against you. You kind of feel like your voice is not heard, but you do it anyways. And we knew they are capable of reaching this height, and we are very confident that they have a good chance next Saturday to win it all.
So pretty incredible moment, right, for the fans in San Diego. But you know, fans back home, especially in Vancouver, were watching too. In fact, they packed the stands at BC Place for a viewing party. The Whitecaps had their chance to claim the MLS Cup title in Florida, December 6th. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Asha Tomlinson. Take care.